All right, in this video, I'm going to do the DNA assignment, and this is an assignment from this SIG Special Interest Group on Computer Science Education 2020, and it's a couple of people from Harvard, and it starts out by explaining how DNA works, and the way DNA works is you have a string of these letters which represent something, and there are these things called short tandem repeats, which in this example we have the short tandem repeat is a sequence in Alice's case here, AGAT, and she has an AGAT STR. This is a sequence of four. This is a sequence of four AGAT STRs. Bob, on the other hand, has got a sequence of five. Okay, so how DNA works is the way you match somebody up is you look at their DNA sequence, and everyone's is quite is different enough as long as you look at enough of these STRs, where if you count up the maximum sequence for a bunch of these different STRs, which is actually discussed in this FBI DNA database here, then you get a unique, what is a very a high probability unique profile for an individual. So if you can get a hold of a person's DNA, then you have this tracer on that person, and you can match up, uh, their DNA with the profile in the database. So anyway, I don't know if that made sense, but okay. So in this assignment, we're supposed to write a program which will read up a DNA database, and then it will read up a sequence, a DNA sequence, and you're supposed to figure out which person in the database that this sequence belonged. Okay, and so in this little example here, we have this is an example of what the DNA database looks like. It's got 3 STRs that it's going to check, and Alice's DNA sequence has got 5 AGATs in a row, 2 AATGs in a row, 8 TATCs in a row, and so on. And you can use this data to test this string should match Alice, this one should match Bob, and so on. All right, but we have to write a program that reads in this database here, which is this data. This is the database that we want you to use in this problem. So it's a little bigger. It's got, 15 folks, and it's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 STRs that we're looking at, and these are the sort of the profiles. So Andrew has got a string of 35 AGATCs in a row, got a string of 6 of these in a row, and so on. And so what we are to do is to take a look at this sequence right here, which looks like this. This is a pretty long sequence, and we're supposed to count up what these sequence, how many in a row these are, and to try to match them up with one of these people. So, for example, if we look at AGATC, let's count up and see how many AGATCs are in this sequence here. So I've got AGATC, AGATC. So if I start, let's go back. If I can, okay. So here's 1 by itself. Here's 1 by itself. Here's 1 by itself. Here's a sequence. This is 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 35. Now we have to make sure that that was the longest, so we have 35. So this could be this person. It's the only, or this person. So we've narrowed it down to either Andrew or Aaron or neither of them. Okay, so now next we would check the TT to check this sequence. And if we find that the longest one is 6, then it's going to be Andrew. If we find the longest one is 34, then it would be Aaron. It could also be, and if it's something different, then we know that this person is not in the database. So that's the task. And so to do this, I'm going to, might as well use Visual Studio Code. So let me create a folder here, new folder. I'm going to call it DNA assignment. Why not? Assign a segment. There we go. And I'm going to go in there. I can. Here we are. And I'm going to click up here, and I'm going to copy that directory path, and I'm going to bring up CMD, enter, and I should end up with a screen like this, and I'm going to do CD space Control V to paste that path. So now I'm inside this directory, and I'm going to do code space period, and that should start up my Visual Studio Code. If it doesn't work, that means you haven't installed Visual Studio Code, so you can just go ahead and install it. It's very easy. Make sure you install the Python parts. And so here we are, we're inside DNA assignment, and I'm just going to create a new file. And so I'm going to start writing my code, but I also want to put in these 2 other files. So here's I want to, I guess, let me go back here, and I'm going to right click. Can I do save as? What happened? All right, let me click on this. Okay, save file. Okay, and I'm going to save it inside my desktop DNA assignment. Save it in here, the data.csv, and I also want to save the sequence thing. So I'm just going to click on the sequence here, and I get this, and I'm going to right-click, save page as inside the DNA assignment here. All right. So now inside DNA assignment, I do have these 2 files. Let me, let's see, I don't need this anymore. Let me go here, and I'm going to create a new file. Oh, this file. Okay, I'm gonna. This is going to be. Oh, I'm going to name this profile.py. Oops, wait a second. I'm naming a file. Save as. profile.py. Okay. Okay, here, oh look, here are our three files. So let's see, how are we going to start out this? Let's see if I find my notes here. What happened to, oh, here it is. Okay, so we're going to use this, why do we need this R? Well, I'm just going to, I know to start out with, I'm going to use this CSV. I'm going to take the hint here. There's a hint here that says, we might find this CSV module helpful for reading CSV files into memory. We might want to take advantage of either the CSV Reader or the CSV Dictionary Reader. So I'm going to use this Dictionary Reader because it reads it in like a table, and then I'm able to refer to actual, cells in a row by indexing, and read and write functions. So I'm going to import, start out by importing this CSV, okay, and then I also I guess I'm going to want to look at the arguments. I want to be able to execute the program this way, which means I have to be able to look at the arguments. And so to do that, I'm going to need the import sys class, and I might need one more class, but I'm not going to add that until I'm sure I need it. Okay, so let's define main, and what that's going to do is it's going to start out by first of all, you're supposed to be able to start this up by saying Python or py profile.py space data.csv space sequence.txt. Okay, so you have to be able to type that in. And so we need to have 3 arguments, 0, 1, and 2, 3 arguments. So if the length of the arguments, argv, is how you reference them, if that is not equal to 3, then we have a problem, so we're just going to exit. I don't know why I'm putting this in there, but usage, Python, actually on my computer it's py, data.csv space sequence.txt. Okay, that's how you're supposed to run this program. All right. So let's say we make it past that. That means that we do have 3 arguments, and the 0th one is the name of the program. The first one is going to be the name of the database. So let's do database equals open sys argv, the first parameter, and now I want to read in this CSV file, and I'm going to use this dictionary reader method. So it looks like this data, and I'm going to might as well name it data equals the CSV dot dictionary reader database. So there's a file out there called that. That's what this is, and this opens it. So now we have an open file. This is an open file, and this reads it up using this method into this data structure here. And then I also want to read up this sequence. And so that's going to be with open sysrv2. This is the name of that file as f. So f is going to be the how we refer to it. We want to read up sequence, a variable name called sequence equals f.read. So this just reads it all up in one fell swoop and stores it into this variable called sequence, as long as it opens. All right, so that should read everything up. So I'm going to do something right now. I think I'm going to try to see what this looks like if I run it. I'm just going to print sequence, see what it looks like. And then I'm also going to just go down here. I'm going to make sure that I close all this stuff. So I am also going to throw in here down at the bottom here, database close. What about the sequence file? All right. Anyway, and then I guess down here I can just do, does this work? Main. Let's see. I'm going to run this. So I'm going to view. No, terminals. I want to see. All right. So I'm going to go py. No, let me just do this. Oh yeah, py profile.py space data.csv space sequence.txt. Didn't seem to do anything. All right. Let's see. I'm gonna. Okay. So I needed to save it, so I saved it, and then when I run it, it does this. So I've got an error here, and the error is I need to put a colon right up here. And so now let's save it again. I got to remember to save it. That's the problem. And then let's run this again. I'm just doing an up arrow, enter, and there we go. So that's what I wanted it to do. I wanted it to print out sequence. You see here, I read it in, and it's unused. It's an unused variable. I read it in, and then I printed it out. Okay, great. And so everything's working. It looks like I'm importing the classes I need to. So let's move on here. I'm just going to close this, and I don't need this there anymore. Let me okay, so after I read this up, after I read up the sequence, then I'm gonna generate this. I need to get the counts, get the counts for each str, and these are the column titles in data.csv after column name. Okay, so so we have to count up for each str what the the longest match is. And so let's declare an array called counts. This is a dictionary. We use squigglies. So that's how you equals squiggly. And then for each, and we're going to loop through the field names. This data object now has got field names, and so we're able to loop through those. I'm going to do for str. I'm going to call it s. Can I call it str? Am I going to run into trouble? I'm going to call it subsequence. For each subsequence, subsequence str, I'll call it that. For each one of those in data field names, from 1 on, for each one of those, and so that's what we're doing, is we're doing, starting with this one, for this, for each one of those, we want to figure out what the counts are. The counts for whatever that subsequence is, this thing, is equal to, and then we're going to have to write this magical method which scans the sequence and figures out what the longest matching subsequence, or for that subsequence, is in the full sequence, in the full DNA sequence. So we have this magical longest match, and we're going to say the longest match in this sequence, that's this thing, the whole big long thing that we just read in. And what we're looking for is the longest match of the subsequence, that. And we're going to do that for each one of the field names. So we're going to do it 8 times. And so this method is going to execute 8 times. It's going to scan through the sequence, and it's going to count up the number of subsequence strings, strs in a row, and it's going to remember what that number is. It's going to return it, and that's going to get stored in here. And then after we have this profile, these 8 values, then we're going to go down the DNA database here one at a time until we figure out what from this row array matches up with which person. And we may find a match or we may not. So to do that loop, let's go back here, and I'm going to say check each row for a matching profile. Each row in data. So I can do for, I'll call it row in data, for each row in data. And here I'm going to use another one of these fancy Python expressions. If all of something, and there's going to be the counts subsequence string is equal to the integer, it's when this gets read up, these aren't read up as numbers, they're read up as strings, and have to be converted to what the integers that they are. Row of subsequence string str. If this is equal for all subsequence strs in counts, remember this is counts is an array, or it's a dictionary, and there's eight elements in this dictionary. One, they're addressed by the subsequence string. For each one of those, if it's true that the counts value is equal to the row value for that column title, if it's equal, and if it's equal for all of them, then we have found a match. The guy matches up. So we just need to print the value that's in the name column. The name column, because that's the guy's name. And when we're done, we can close the database and return. So we're done. If we get all the way through the database, if we look at every single row and it's never true that all of the counts values are equal to all of the row values for each of the substrings, subsequence strs. If we get all the way through, then we know that we didn't find a match, so we just simply print no match, and we're done. Close the database. All right, so now the big main problem is this fancy mysterious longest match. And what's going to get passed in as parameters is sequence and some sort of subsequence. And we can call it the same thing. Don't have to call it the same thing, but let's call it the same thing. And so we're going to loop, and we're going to be counting up matches, sequential matches, and so we're going to have to keep a counter that keeps track of the longest sequence in a row of a particular str. And so let's call that variable best, or we can call it longest. Let's call it longest. So longest will be equal to 0. And we're going to look at these strings, or we're going to look at these subsequences, these substrings, as many characters at a time as there are in the particular str that we're looking at. So when we're looking at the for sequences of AGATC, we're going to look at groups of 5 characters at a time. When we're looking for groups of TTTTTTCT, which looks like it's 8, we're looking at 8 characters at a time, and so on. This one's 4 characters at a time. So we have this length variable here. Let's keep track of that. Length equals the length of a subsequence string, str, I mean. And then, so now we're going to loop. We're going to start for each. Do I have? Starting with the first character, we're going to start with each one, and each time we're going to test to see if it's equal to whatever subsequence str we happen to be looking for at the time. And once we find one, then we're going to start looking at them, in this case, 5 characters at a time. And so, so for each character at a time, we can go for I in the range of the length of the subsequence of the sequence. The length of the sequence in that range, we want to start out by counting the matches in a row. So I'm just going to have a variable called count. No, it's not count. It's just a singular count. And so this is going to look while true. And so I'm going to do while true. And while we're finding a match, this will be true. We'll keep on looping while we find matches of the subsequences. And once we do a comparison and we do not find a match, we'll use a break statement to break out of this loop. So that's going to look like this. We're going to look at if the sequence, this subsequence of the sequence start to end. This is going to be a substring within the sequence. If that's equal to subs, or this thing, if that's equal, then we want to increment count. Okay. Otherwise, you want to break out of here, and we want to break out of here and look at substrings starting with the very next character. So that's what this break will be, and so we need to figure out what the start and end actually is. And so start is going to be is going to equal the starting character of the sequence of that we're looking at. That's this I right here, plus whatever the length of the substring that we're looking at times whatever the count happens to be. Okay, so if we have found a couple of these in a row, then count will be 1, 2, 3, 4, and so we want to start looking at whatever the length is times count. And so I'm not sure if that makes sense. Is there a way to? Oops. I didn't mean to do that. So that's what start is, and then we need to do what end is, and end is going to be simply end is equal to start plus length. So if we want to, I'm trying to remember how I close this. That's how I close it. All right. Okay, so let me put this over here. And so if we start with AGATC, we did before, and we start by searching this. Here, where's this? Where's the sequence start? Okay, here's where the sequence starts. So this is going to be I is going to start wherever this is, and then so that's going to be start, and then the length is going to be 5. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so end is going to be right here, or it's going to be here because it's always one after in Python. So we're looking from here to here, and it's actually from here all the way up to here, the one just before that. So it's, in other words, it's these AGAT, whatever that is, AGATC. And so start it. So that's what this is, and so this says if it matches, then increment the count. And so right here, this is the first match. So this is going to be count goes from 0 to 1. Then this one's going to be goes to 2, and this one goes to 3. Is that what I'm doing? Am I doing HE8? Where happened to the C? Okay, well, anyway. So that's how this thing sequences through it. So each time it keeps on going, it increments this count until this is no longer true. And once that's no longer true, it breaks out. It breaks out down to here, the end of the while loop. And right here, we want to test to see if it's the longest one yet. And the longest one is going to be stored in this variable called longest. So we can do longest equals the maximum of longest comma count. So the maximum of whatever the longest was, and this newly counted up one here. Okay, and then so once that's done, we've just broken out, and I is pointing to the first one. Let's see. Let me see if this JTC. So once it hits the last one, this goes up to what? Oh, there. Oops. Okay, so this is the second to the last one. This is the last one, and then it's going to check the next 5, and it's not going to match. AGGAT does not match AGATC. So then it breaks out, and then it starts again where I is equal to that character right there. So it's going to look at 8. Yeah. So anyway, that's how it's going to look at that one, and then it's going to look at that one, because when it doesn't match, it increments through this one character at a time. All right, so let's get back to this. So this is going to store the maximum longest count, and once we've gone through all of the characters in the sequence, then we're done. And whatever this longest value is, that's going to be what we return, and it's 0 or whatever it is, and so it's going to just return longest. All right. So that's probably it. Let's try to run this and see what happens. Let me pop this back out again. Doesn't matter really. View terminal, and let's run this again, and we're gonna get. Oh, I forgot to save it. Gotta save it. Save. Now let's run this, and it prints out Aaron. So apparently, this big long sequence here has got 35 AGATCs in a row and no more. It could have other sequences that are smaller than 35, but the biggest AGATC sequence is 35. The biggest TTTTTTCT sequence is 34. The biggest AATG is 21, and so on. They exactly match, and because they exactly matched, this here was true for all of this column titles, for all of the indexes of counts, and so then we were able to print out Aaron's name. All right, so that's how that would work. So when we're all done, we can save all, and I would then close this, exit, and we have then this folder here. Look inside, it looks like this. This is where we just were. So I would like you to right-click and send to compressed zip. And here it is. and go back to your assignment page, go down to the bottom here, and click on Browse, and go to the desktop and pick up DNA assignment.zip, open, and submit. And one of the things I forgot to tell you, what I'd like you to do is, if you could, let's see, can I do this open with Visual Studio? Visual Studio Code. Open with Visual Studio Code. Anyway, I'd like you to put someplace you know, Rich Alverson's, this is me, DNA assignment. So just so I know it's yours. Okay, that's all. So try in your code with that. All right. I hope that helped.